So we're here at ISPO 2020 and here on the Nikwax stand with Nick Brown, who's the founder and CEO of Nikwax. I'm just going to ask him a few questions about Nikwax Hydrophobic Down.
Thank you.
So the Nikwax Hydrophobic Down, we've got some just behind us being shaken here. The original version was brought to the market in 2015.
That's right.
How was it received back then?
It's received very well. I think we've now pretty well proven that we've got the best products on the marketplace. And the issue for us is to go out and sell it. But to do that, we've got to set up enough suppliers. But overall, it's been received extremely well.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
And the new story here is NHD+. So what changes have you made to the original?
Okay, well, the original standard we set was 1,000 minutes of shaking on this machine. So basically what you do is put some down with half a litre of water and shake it like hell. And we managed to get to 1,000 minutes of shaking with the original hydrophobic down without it wetting out.
That's incredible.
Which in practical terms in a jacket or in a sleeping bag means that you're protected from your own condensation, from your own sweat basically. The moisture that comes off your body potentially could go into the down. But with hydrophobic down, it goes through the down and it will condense on the outside of the jacket or the inside of the fabric, which means that you don't lose loft in very cold conditions.
So keeping you dry and keeping
you
warm.
and obviously when it's raining you're protected as well. So what we've moved on to is that we've managed to get 10,000 minutes on our high performance hydrophobic down plus, and we've also managed to get 1,000 minutes on recycled down. So we've now, the product's now split into two. So we've got product which is recycled down, which is coming from duvets, which are largely actually from Eastern Europe. And then product which is virgin down, which we're getting 10,000 minutes, which is pretty well a week shaking on that machine.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that probably leads us on to something else we'd like to talk about, which is obviously you as Nikwax were very early to the market in terms of having really good environmental credentials. Do you think the rest of the industry is catching up now?
I think the rest of the industry is certainly becoming aware of how important it's going to be. But there are a lot of challenges, obviously, in actually bringing that to reality. I think the key thing is going to be measurement. You know, in terms of some of the simple things you can do. We've been measuring our energy that we put into our operational activities now for something like 12 years. And we've been essentially cutting down that amount of energy by using green energy and by insulation and by all sorts of things. So we've been at the game for 12 years and the majority of brands here haven't started yet. And the starting point for them is just to find out how much energy they're using. And most people don't know.
And so there's still a long way to go.
There is a long way to go. I mean, the European Outdoor Group has stated that they want the industry to go carbon negative, not just carbon neutral. But they haven't yet stated how. And in my opinion, I think the important thing is not to try to be too ambitious to start with. I think it's to try to deal with the energy that you use in running your business first, make sure that you manage that and you actually measure that and then you deal with it. So you can reduce it by insulation or choosing to use green energy. But then also you can do what we've been doing for 10 years, which is investing in replanting forest and in basically reforestation in the tropics, which means that you're taking carbon out of the atmosphere for all of that stuff that you can't actually get rid of. You know, we all have to use some energy.
Multi-pronged approach of offsetting as well.
Yeah,
as
absolutely. Yeah. And it's not an impossible thing to do, but it's just that a lot of people just got to get going soon.
Start small, start now.
I think the thing is to not try not to be too ambitious. I think that there's two things. One is to try not to be too ambitious. Look at your operational carbon. In other words, what are you actually using to run your business first? And in theory, if there's this concept, which is quite a new concept, which is added carbon. You know, in business we have added value, but every time something goes through the supply chain, effectively there's some carbon added to that product. So, you know, from the early stages, they're using carbon in order to make the product. They're using carbon to transport the product. They're using carbon within the stores. Now, if we dealt with, that's all operational carbon, what I would call operational carbon. If all of those points in the supply chain were able to deal with their operational carbon, we would have gone a long way to extracting the carbon from the end product, which I think is a really achievable thing, but it's trying not to be too ambitious.
And to reach too far.
We want a lot of people to do a little.
And that's the thing. And do you get the sense that the EOG is bringing together what would effectively be competitors in the marketplace to work together on something that is important to all of us?
I think the great difficulty for the EOG is that it represents everybody. So, and obviously the vast majority of people are not at this point managing their emissions. So they've got to go on representing everybody. And in reality, and they are, which I think is very good, being cooperative in terms of education. So they can tell people how to do it, but they actually can't make people do it. And it's not their role to try and make people do it. So I think the interesting thing here is that we have to create somehow or another a situation where there is a competitive advantage to those businesses that are actually being properly environmentally responsible.
And actually, the consumers will be driving this very soon,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
it's something people are looking at increasingly.
And the competitive advantage in having an environmental responsibility is really important, but you actually can't have that without having auditing, which is independent third-party auditing, because otherwise the competitive advantage is eaten up by tons of greenwash. So that's one of the problems that we've got to deal with. So my view on it is that we need to do small amounts of stuff first in a very audited way, in a way that you can say, this is measurable and this is verifiable and we know we do it, and then that gives us an advantage, we can say that, and try and get that spread out across the industry. That's the idea.
Well, great to have you starting that.
Right.
And thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you. Okay.